about Velma West at work, and I forgot, and he grabbed it off the printer for me, and he was just like, she's cute, and I was like, she murdered her husband. He went, oh, and I was like, with a hammer.
That feels right. That feels typical.
Feels on brand.
Very much on brand.
Very much on brand. Like for Christmas Eve and Berta's drinking.
So, hi, guys. And thank you for joining us here at the Lake Erie Library. I am Beth.
Dun, 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 dun. I'm a mean one. I'm Britta. I'm gonna get a suit. I keep singing things.
I'm so worried we're gonna check our little Lake Erie Library email, and which I guess if you guys really wanted to, you could email us. It is on our Podbean.
Does anybody send email anymore for real reasons?
I would just laugh if I had like this random like, hey, I just really enjoyed your podcast. This is like,
I would print it out and frame it.
Did I ever tell you, speaking of like things I want to print out and frame, I have saved on my phone a Google review for our library. And
I feel like I know exactly which one
I'm sure you do. It's my favorite review. It says, all librarians there have a good amount of thickness with 3 C's.
Oh, that's a good one. I liked that. These people are lazy. They don't open till 2. And I was like, yeah, but we're in the building before that. That's also changed.
But yeah, I have that one saved, and I think about it all the time because as a mother, something you find out is your body changes, and especially if you're a breastfeeding mom, I found out that if you lose any fat on your body, it comes from your butt region.
Well, there's probably a lot of cushion for the push in there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big muscle, but it's also where a lot of fat gets stored.
So my body has obviously changed, and, you know, I'm not saying if I have a case of body dysmorphia, it is like a very mild case of just, I don't know what my body looks like, which is true. A lot of fluctuations have happened in the past 2 years where I'm just like, I still have the same clothes as I did 10 years ago. How does this t-shirt fit? Well, what do you mean it's ginormous now? What? Or
I don't have that problem. I have the opposite problem.
Or it's, this dress is going to fit so different now, right? I'm like, oh, it fits the same. The same? Why does it fit the same? I've lost so much weight. And then I'm like,
my problem is time to get out my seasonal sweaters. Oh, time to put those all away because you can't fit any of them over your linebacker shoulders and your porn star chest.
Jesus. So, anyways, I just think about that line that I want to frame because I want to put it in my like workout area and then do squats, and that'll make me feel better.
Do you want to start sitting on the goblin perch and you can squat the whole time?
I don't know. It doesn't look comfortable.
We can discuss. I think it would make me feel real weird sitting on the other side of this couch.
Yeah, that's true. You form a habit. And
I have claimed the goblin perch.
You form a habit, and I think 21 times you've done this. And I don't know if we've recorded 21. I don't think we have, but we have recorded over the course of months. So it's the same thing, I think. You're doing the math right now of how many times.
It's been like 3 months at least, if not more, that we've been sitting here recording.
Yeah, so definitely.
It's been like 4 months.
Habitual. Yeah, I think I'd feel weird too. Like, I know eventually we're going to change the setup for what we got again, and then we're going to be like, what?
I'm still going to end up like perching. Like, you're going to try to make me sit in a folding chair, and I'm going to go, I hate this, and I'm going to come and like perch on the edge of your shoulder. Like a little grotesque, or like a gargoyle, but gargoyles spit water, so I don't think you want me to be a gargoyle. That's your fun fact for this Christmas Eve episode. Actually, this is the week before. No, this is Christmas Eve. For your Christmas Eve episode, gargoyles are meant to disperse water from buildings. So they all have little holes so that the water pools on top and spits out of them. If it doesn't spit water, it's a grotesque, which is what I call myself every morning when I look in the mirror.
Oh. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone. What do you mean I can't take off my sweater? It's hot.
So, again, welcome to the Lake Erie Library. Today, we are going to talk about spooky holiday books.
That's right.
I don't know why I sang it, but that's what we're talking about.
I'm into it. Let's sing everything.
Slightly different format than some of the other stuff that we've done for... This is like book club light. I would call this, for all you Instagram girlies, a book talk, if you will, or for library people, because... I don't think if we went full book club mode in these, we would be here for 5 hours.
I was going to read the entirety of the books, Beth. I thought this was an audiobook recording session.
Oh my gosh. And in digging into this, before we begin on what we're going to talk about, can I just say, I realized I don't read a lot of Christmas horror. I think by this time of year, I've like binged so much on like horror from like October, November, that by December I'm like, man, I just gotta get my Goodreads goal done. Like, give me some trashy romance novels, give me some Christmassy romance, Murder Light maybe, but that's it. That's what I want to read. Like, I don't read a lot of Christmas horror books.
I think I've read too many Christmas horror books because that is how I feel about Christmas. Again, not gonna go off on my tangent about why I don't like it. I think my thing is like I watch a lot of horror in October, but I don't necessarily read it in October. And then November feels very like thriller mystery to me, so I usually try to read that in November. And then December, I'm just like over everything. So I'm like, I cannot, dear God, do not make me watch a Christmas movie, let alone a Hallmark Channel Christmas movie. They're all the same movie. There's thousands of them and it's all the same thing. And it's like the same cover. It's a girl in a red sweater and a guy in a green sweater. And they're standing in the thing and they're like hugging. And it's right in the middle. Just look them up. Look up the covers. All right. I'm not wrong about this.
The only Hallmark movie I have ever tried to watch was one that Bruce Campbell was in. And I watched it for maybe a half hour and was like, this is not good. And I like Bruce Campbell and I am so sad right now. And I was like, he's good, but he also, it's like the song, one of these things are not like the other. One of these things doesn't belong. And
you just like, he's like putting up Christmas lights and you wait for him to like pull out a boomstick or something?
Yes,
okay.
yes. And because he's a little sardonic in it and a little, it's just hard because, as I said, I like him a lot as the character Ash, but I feel like I have not seen him not be that character in a very long time. Like, I can't think of a movie where I'm like, oh yeah, he was completely different in that.
What animated cartoon from like our childhood? I don't know. I can't pinpoint it. There was like a character called the Chin who was like a superhero. Do you remember this?
Yeah. I'm thinking of the Tick, but
not the Tick.
Yeah.
That's. I feel like that is like Bruce Campbell is the Chin.
Was that from Fairly Odd Parents?
Maybe.
The Crimson Chin?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I realized that's one point I wanted to make. Two, I realized that in looking at Christmas horror, like there's some books that are obviously like straight up like Santa is murdering people. I watch a lot of Christmas horror movies, which is why I think I also don't read Christmas horror books because I'm already watching Christmas horror movies.
Yeah, which at this point we've given you a rundown of some of those. So
right.
Hopefully you watched at least one of them, or else what are we doing this for? What are we doing this for? I mean, what are we putting all this work in for if you're not going to at least attempt to watch one of the terrible movies we tell you about?
Or if you don't watch it like right then, if you've watched it at least once in the past and you listen and you go, yes, I agree, and do the Gen Z little wrist pump that they do where like
what you're doing right now is how you say yes in American Sign Language.
Well, that's what I've seen Gen Z do.
I see them do that like a fake scream thing that they do, which is also how you sign like awesome, and everything is sign language in my brain. I'm sorry.
I'm just our student worker did that to me and said, I see you, and I was like, I feel very recognized now.
They do fist pump a lot. They get very excited. It's very endearing. I'm just trying to give like a guilt trip because I know that like I'm Polish, so Christmas Eve is when my family does Christmas, but if it goes the way that Thanksgiving went this year, we're not doing anything because my mom has decided she doesn't want to celebrate holidays anymore, which is like upsetting to me because she's in her 70s and I'm like, Mom, like I'm not trying to be morbid, but you're not going to be around forever. So I would like to have like, good holiday memories from the end of while you're here with us rather than like, oh, we didn't do shit and now she's not here. So that's where I'm at this holiday season. But I'm also probably getting super guilt tripped about something by my very Catholic mother on this Catholic takeover of pagan holidays. It's my straddling of cultures. It's my like little bi disaster still in the broom closet surrounded by Catholics. Oh. So
we are getting all over the place in this.
Happy holidays anyway. So this is for our time traveler Buddy the elf co-worker who for sure doesn't listen to this podcast. But she's very excited about Jólabókaflóðið. Do you know about Jólabókaflóðið?
I do know about Jólabókaflóðið because I've done multiple programs on Hygge at the library. So, like, I'm well versed in some of this Icelandic and Danish and Scandinavian culture.
Yeah, so for everybody who's like, what is happening? Is Britta having a stroke right now? What is that word she just said? It's a tradition in Iceland that started during World War II when paper was one of the few commodities that they didn't ration. So Icelanders shared their love of books as gifts. And this turned into like a national cultural celebration where every year they send out like mid-November, everyone in the country gets like a book bulletin sent to their house. It's during the Reykjavik Book Fair, and they use this catalog to order books to give to their friends and family for Christmas.
Like Scholastic, but for
it's
grown-ups?
Like a nationwide Scholastic Book Fair.
I love it.
And you open these presents on December 24th, and then everybody reads the books that they got like right away. So you spend Christmas Eve reading your new book while drinking like hot chocolate or Jólabókaflóðið. I don't know if I said that right. It's like a non-alcoholic Christmas ale, but it's like a very festive bookworm celebration.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which, that makes sense because where they are in the world, it's so dark there so early.
They're probably seeing northern lights.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe it's a little late in the season for that. I think that's usually around like the time that we're recording it. So like October, November, but it just seems very cozy there. And, our time traveler Buddy, the elf coworker, is also super into like the elves of that area, which I just like from the Will Ferrell Eurovision movie where they're like murder elves, like they throw knives at people, and I get down with that. So maybe you are like me and your family opens your presents on Christmas Eve and then you don't do anything on Christmas. Or, maybe you're gearing up for that. Or maybe you're like, man, I got so many Barnes and Noble or local bookstore gift certificates.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta pick something to spend this hot plastic cash on. And we're going to give you some ideas. Yeah. Some are good, some are not so good. But that's what we're here for.
Yeah. So starting with our... you know, I was thinking about just Christmas and horror in general, and I was like, that feels like something that shouldn't go together, but it does invariably. And it's because, like, there's so many things that, while I think there's, like, good pure intentions, because it started in pagan traditions, and inevitably those are kind of violent in a way, or darker in a way. I think we as humans in general kind of see that duality for things, because, like, I'm just thinking about, like, what types of stories did I read as a kid? Were they any type of horror? And I was like, you know what? The Nutcracker, like, at the beginning, scared the bejesus out of me as a kid. Not even just
the beginning. There's, like, a mutant rat king with multiple heads.
Yeah.
I was a dance kid. I've been in the Nutcracker. Never any of the good characters. Always a horse.
No.
Always a horse. I could do it for you right now. I could still do it.
My one of my good friends in junior high and high school was also in the Nutcracker, so I saw her perform multiple times. And even as, like, a high schooler, I was like, man, it's still pretty creepy. Like, the rats coming into the house with, like, Clarabelle, and, like, coming in and, like, trying to sneakily mess up the Nutcracker.
They, like, try to murder her Nutcracker, and then he comes to life.
Right.
To defend her.
Like, it's pretty spooky.
And then the whole rest of it is just one giant fever dream.
Yes.
It's like one kid super cracked out on Christmas cookies and sugar who passes out at her family Christmas party.
Yep.
Gets a Nutcracker for Christmas from her weird, eccentric godfather.
Yep.
And then has this, like, Wizard of Oz, really more akin to Return to Oz, fever dream for the rest of the show.
Yes. And as I said, like, I thought about that, and I was like, man, that beautiful music. Thank you.
To use the Gen Z vernacular, the Nutcracker slaps, Beth.
It does slap. But it's still kind of dark. Like, it's a dark story. And I know the first story we're going to discuss also is dark, and it is not considered our Buddy the Elf coworker. We have bonded over this story, and it's not considered a horror story, but it is a horror story.
Straight up the meaning of the season.
Yes.
Ghosts. Coming to billionaires to torture them into becoming good people. I'm talking about you, Elon Musk, and Amazon guy. Thank you. I could picture him, but I was like, oh, what's his name? He is the Rat King.
And yeah, so we are discussing A Christmas Carol, and
but I still think that we should just record our own version of Christmas Carol for them as a Christmas present.
We could. It is technically free to distribute. It is on Project Gutenberg.
I have a whole bottle of Frankenstein wine left. We can do this.
So before we discuss it, I just want to read the preface of A Christmas Carol, which is, I have endeavored in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea which shall not put my readers out of humor with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it. Their faithful friend and servant, Charles Dickens. So, for those of you who don't know the story of A Christmas Carol, which
where have you been?
Yeah, I'm sure you know it, because there's, again, because it is free to share and use, there are so many different versions of A Christmas Carol. Like, as a kid, I think my first introduction to it was with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know when that came out. I'm sure I saw that before, but I did go see the Muppet Christmas Carol
which
in
is
theaters.
My favorite version of the Christmas Carol.
The Muppets make everything better.
Yes.
But I also remember that my cousin, who is like, she's your age, she's like 4 years younger than me, was terrified during the Muppets Christmas Carol. Man, and I didn't get it. I was like, why is she crying? And my mom's like, because she's scared. I'm like, but it's puppets, Mom.
The Ghost of Christmas Present, even though it's supposed to be like a little girl glowy
I
girl
think she
ghost.
was more scared of Christmas Future.
Christmas Future is scary, and like I've seen productions of A Christmas Carol. There's one theater company that does like a version of it every year, and they don't change the ghost of Christmas Future ever, so it's the same. It's scary. Like, I was like, I'm in junior high. I'm 13 years old. I'm not scared, and I'm like, no, it's a little spooky.
It's the only way to defeat capitalism, Beth, is through fear.
Yes.
We have to make them afraid.
So, anyways, basic premise of A Christmas Carol is you have this terrible, mean old miserly man named Scrooge, Ebenezer Scrooge, who is lovingly played by Michael Caine, and he is
in the Muppet one. He's
one.
been played by quite a few people.
Yes.
There's like a really terrible CGI cartoon version where Jim Carrey plays
that
him.
one is also terrifying.
That's like, but that's for totally different reasons. It's
Yes.
like non-story related.
I think
Alistair?
Thank you. I was gonna say Alabaster. and
Wow,
that's
you're not even drinking.
No, I'm like, that's not his name. That's a
There was like
mineral.
a weird made-for-TV one where I think, was it Ethan Hawke played him? It was on like Stars or Showtime.
Okay.
So like a lot of people have played him. A lot of renowned actors.
So it's about this man. He owns his own like little accounting firm. He is very well off. He treats his workers terribly. And essentially he goes home on the night of Christmas. It's like the 23rd into the 24th. Is that right?
I think it's on Christmas
It's on. He
Eve.
goes home on Christmas Eve because the workers ask for, my God, Christmas Day off, and he's like, oh wow. And so
He's like, I gave you a pizza party, you ungrateful bastard. Why do you need the day off?
So he goes home, and he's essentially visited by, first by his dead associate. Which, if you've never read A Christmas Carol, great opening line. It starts with Marley's ghost, stave 1. Marley was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. What a great line.
It is good. It is good.
So, visited by Marley's ghost, and then and Marley's just there like, hey, you're like a really big piece of crap. Like, you are so selfish. Like, you're so miserly. You're so stingy with your money. Like, you have more money than you know what to do with. You're going to die alone. Before you die alone,
It's like all of my intrusive thoughts, but it's like if Beth died and came and said them to me. You're ugly and no one likes you and everyone hates you and nobody is really friends with you and they all make fun of you. Also, you're overweight and you're gonna lose all your money.
I would never do that. So, anyways,
I just snorted.
So Marley essentially tells him, like, hey, you're going to be visited by 3 spirits. And Scrooge is like, okay, whatever. And then he is visited by 3 spirits. He's visited by the ghost of the past, the ghost of the present, and the ghost of the future. So he goes through and they kind of examine his life and his choices.
And you get a sense of why he's so miserable. Like, he does have reason to be. I mean, it's kind of his own doing, but it's very like, I was young and dumb and didn't realize the consequences of not valuing things that are important to me.
Right.
Which, my God, I mean, I really agree. The Muppet Christmas Carol is like the best version of this because the song that like they cut from, it was in the theatrical version and then they cut it from like the video release that When Love, oh God, I can't remember. It's so sad. It's like the saddest song ever. It's just very much like end of the year regrets and broken hearts at Christmas time. But yeah, the whole point is Scrooge has got to realize that
he can't keep being the way he is. He's got to reevaluate his life. He does have some family, and then of course His one most loyal employee, Bob Cratchit, who's played by Kermit, has a family, and his youngest
Tim, who did not die.
Yes, his youngest son is Tiny Tim, who is very sickly. So he realizes, like, I need to be kinder to my workers. I need to give them more money. And yeah, like, the scariest part in this book is definitely the ghost of Christmas future. Like, he is truly visited by three spirits. And I would say the spookiest part in these books is not, well, first of all, if you see the Muppet version, the ghost of Christmas past is, I think, is kind of,
it's like a little girl. She's
like
kind of ethereal.
Yeah.
I get it. She's not super scary to me, but I get it.
But I love Ghost of Christmas Present because he's just a giant Muppet.
Come in and know me better, man. There's so many just random lines in this that are really great too. Scrooged is also a great adaptation of this with Bill Murray. I really like that one. And that ghost of like future is also terrifying with all the little critters inside of him.
So we keep talking about the movie versions, but read the book. The book is good. It's short.
It's
too.
Very short. It's a fast read. And I don't love Dickens. Like we joke about our wealthy benefactor because of Great Expectations. And I think some people have a hard time getting into him, probably because you read him in high school, and by that I mean you read the Cliff's Notes, because who's going to read Charles Dickens when you can be like a teenager? But it is a fast read. I actually got my copy of this because I own a hard copy of this book. I got it at Hale Farm and Village.
Oh,
that was my souvenir that I bought. Like when we went to, if you're unfamiliar with it, Hale Farm and Village is a like historic tourist area where you go back to like pre-colonial times. They have like where you can go and make hand-dipped beeswax candles. And for some reason they sell copies of A Christmas Carol in their gift shop, and that was what I chose at like age 11 to buy. I also it's on brand for me. I also bought like a copy of Romeo and Juliet when I went to like Ashland University for an orchestra, the Ashland Spring Wingding, in their bookstore. So I just was like ahead of my time as a child buying these books as souvenirs.
Which is funny because I'm pretty sure I'm like 90% certain I got both my version of A Christmas Carol and Romeo and Juliet through like the Scholastic book like magazine and like ordered them, and because I was like, oh, that's a cheap paperback. Yeah, having to read it for school. But I would definitely say, yeah, Christmas Carol is really short. If you're like, I don't feel like reading it, do yourself a favor and listen to Neil Gaiman.
Oh my God. What a
read
voice.
it.
What a voice. Like, I often describe Adam Duritz from Counting Crows' voice as being like the human embodiment of like what hot chocolate feels like going down your throat, but the same can be said for Neil Gaiman's voice.
Yes. If I would listen to him read like car manual instructions, I'd be like, very good.
So soothing. Wish I could set my like Google Maps GPS voice to Neil Gaiman.
So sorry, you made a wrong turn.
Beautiful. I love it.
So anyways, yeah, do yourself a favor. Like he actually is coming to New York. Well, by the time this is aired, he's already been to New York, and he did a live event, and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually told our coworker about this, and I was like, aren't you so excited? And I'm like, I don't know why I'm getting excited. I can't just leave work. I have a bunch of library programs I have to do. Also, I can't buy like a plane ticket and hotel. Like, I don't have money like that right now. Like, what am I thinking? And I'm like, what's my tater tot gonna do while I sit and listen to Neil Gaiman read A Christmas Carol live for like 3 hours?
Sleep.
Home Alone 2. Like, what?
Be lulled into a delicious sleep where he dreams about ghosts and his very short life.
So yeah. Listen to that. You can find it online. There's a free audiobook version that the New York Public Library sponsored, so well worth a listen. And then you can check it off your Goodreads list, and
It counts.
So that is the start, our weirdly hectic start into this.
Feels right. Feels on brand. There's one stupid quote from A Christmas Carol that like I love so much.
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's, you know, like you have like a weird, scary experience around like bedtime, like you have a nightmare or something, and you wake up and you try to like rationalize it. And
well, yes, because that's probably, besides the ghost, that's probably the spookiest part, is when the ghosts depart and when Scrooge is like by himself. He's by himself in his room. It's completely pitch black, and it's the old 1800s where they have the 4-poster bed and they have the drapes around the bed where like,
I just always think of like kings dying in those beds.
Yes, and you know, I get it for like warmth purposes because like their houses weren't very warm, but I'm also like, what a good way to set yourself up for like the scariest, psychologically terrible moments ever.
Your whole bed is hiding under the covers.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's basically like talking to the ghosts after they've left. Like I think it's after Marley first appears, or if it's Michael Caine and the Muppets, Marley and Marley.
Marley and Marley. Oh my god.
Anyway, he says, "You may be a bit of undigested beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more gravy than grave about you, whatever you are." More gravy than grave about you, like, is in my brain forever.
So, yeah, it's a good, as I said, it's a good way to kick off Christmas season. It is Christmas horror in its kind of purest form with a happy ending.
And Tiny Tim, who did not die.
Yes.
He didn't, guys. He didn't.
Spoiler alert if you haven't read this.
It's not a spoiler. Just latch on to it because it's very sad when you think he dies. It's really, really sad.
That's true. All right. So moving on from there, do you want to go first? You want me to go
I can.
First? Okay.
So, I'm gonna kind of crank out like 3 sort of together. They are YA books from the 90s from our Lord and Savior R.L. Stein, who is an Ohioan. He's from Columbus. And Bob used to crank out these Fear Street books in the 90s, and 3 of his super chillers, which if you are familiar with, like, I wore this on purpose. I wore my like fake Babysitter's Club shirt because they used to do the same thing. They used to do like the super ones that were like, instead of 150 pages, they were the length of a normal book. They were like 300.
I think Sweet Valley High did that too.
Yes.
And they had that really, that one really terrifying cover where it was like a haunted house and you opened it up and it was like a girl with hair that was on fire. And I remember as a child having no context to it being like,
it's Firestarter.
Why is this so scary?
So he, 3 of his super chillers are Silent Night 1, 2, and 3. And I got this delicious collector's edition from the library, where the front is a very creepy Santa Claus and it's sort of see-through, and then on the inside you have our main character Reva, and then the back flap is also one of the covers with some creepy mannequins. So Silent Night 1, 2, and 3 all feature the main character of Reva Dalby, who is, for lack of a better description, the crustiest bitch you have ever read a YA book about. If there was a burn book, she would be the Regina George of it. So she's terrible. So Silent Night number 1 came out in 1991. It's the Fear Street Super Chiller number 2, and the cover tagline is "Happy Holidays, you're dead." So the description, the synopsis is, "Don't open that present. If only Reva Dalby had listened to that warning. But beautiful, cold Reva won't listen to anyone. Reva thinks she can have whatever and whoever she wants. After all, her daddy owns Dalby department stores. Now, someone has some surprises in store for her. Robbery, terror, even murder. Someone wants to treat Reva to a holiday she'll never forget. Holiday cheer quickly turns to holiday chills for Riva. Someone is stalking her. Someone is trying to get her. Her money can't help her. No one can. After all, who can you turn to when murder comes gift wrapped?
That's a good... Pay that person extra bucks.
Right? So basically, she is like in her senior year of high school in the first one. She sucks so hard. She's so mean to everyone, to the point where she works at like her dad's department store. Like, we're talking like Macy's in the 90s, where it's like maybe not attached to the mall, it's by itself.
Right.
But there's multiple floors. He has them all across the country. They have a ton of money. They've got like a house with a Doberman Pinscher guard dog. It's her 6-year-old little brother Michael, and her dad. Her mom passed away. So that's your like backstory of why she's such a bitch. It's because like her mom's dead and she's afraid of like examining those emotions. So very loose justification for how she treats people. But she quote unquote works a like perfume counter.
Okay.
She doesn't ever work. The whole book is just her being like, and then this woman came up to me. Ugh, why don't you get a nose job? What's that? I said, do you want to try this new Eau de Blob perfume? Like, it's so terrible. Like, she's just mean. She's constantly stealing people's boyfriends. Like, her cousin Pam is a character in all 3 books. Pam is her family is related through Riva's mom, so she's not from the money side of the family. Pam's like pretty poor and runs with sort of a rough crowd in the first book. And she's really terrible to Pam. Like, she keeps trying to steal everyone's boyfriends just for fun, and then when she gets them, like, she doesn't want them anymore. She breaks up with her boyfriend, who's like, she keeps describing him as like this dumb meathead who's like really big. But I'm like, girl, if like bad things happen to you, why are you getting rid of the big guy who can protect you? Like, this seems like a bad choice. So somebody keeps messing with her. Like, there's a description of her putting on lipstick at work and then all of a sudden realizing her lips are bleeding because someone put a needle in her lipstick.
What?
Yeah, this is 90s YA horror. It was like a different brand of horror. So things keep happening to her. People keep getting, like, murdered. It escalates, like, really quickly. And there are some, like, very choice descriptions that are very 90s in these books. Like, the decor of the department store offices, which are upstairs, she's like... She felt nearly normal as she stepped out onto the floor of the luxurious executive offices. The lights were all on, recessed into the dark fabric-covered walls lined with large modern paintings. Fresh flowers stood in tall vases on the plush maroon carpet. Maroon carpet, Beth. Maroon carpet.
The fabric on the walls is a pretty...
Riva passed the reception area with its leather couches and chairs and followed the hallway toward her father's office in the corner. So, like, very 90s decor. And it's... So the first one... introduces us to these characters, and there is murder at the department store. It might be Santa. It's up for discussion. I don't want to spoil it in case you decide to read it. And then number 2 takes place a year later, which is it came out in 1993. It's Super Chiller number 5. The cover tagline is Jingle Bells, Santa Kills. Sure, she promised to be nicer after last year's horrors, but a rich, spoiled girl like Riva Dalby always thinks she can have anything or anything she wants and never pay. But now it's payback time. Someone is out to kidnap Riva. This year, Santa is bringing Riva a little holiday fear. And just around the corner is the biggest, most gruesome Christmas present of all. Murder, and it's all hers.
But honestly, I'm just like... Yeah, seems justified.
She's terrible. She deserves everything that happens to her. Also, she's a redhead, and I resent that. Like, not all redheads are evil. I've got a soft spot for gingers of all genders. We're not all bad. Book 2 features multiple kidnappings. They all go horribly wrong. The one thing I don't love about book 2 is that it doesn't focus as much on like Riva and the main characters, and has this weird side plot with these like teenage criminals that are like vaguely Bonnie and Clyde natural born killers-esque type people. And then there's another character that's part of that group that just like has this random rage issue where he like rage blackouts and wants to kill people, and it's never really explained. So
R.L. Stine, we're taking some risks here.
Yeah. There's also this running thing between the books where there's like a fake toy knife that's like retractable that keeps coming out in every single book. Like it's a paper cutter in one and a letter opener in another, and then it's just a toy knife in the other one. And I'm like, I'm not gonna fall for it. I fell for it. Like every time. And then we have Silent Night number 3, which came out in 1997, which is Super Chiller number 11. Cover tagline, "'Tis the season to die."
Oh, I like that one.
And basically, in this one, Riva wants to become famous and thinks like, okay, I'm going to cash in on my rich dad, but then realizes she has like a stalker. And so at this point, Riva has graduated from high school. She's gone to college, and she brings home her very neurotic roommate, Grace, who has... There is like an abusive partner side story for Grace. She comes home to stay with Riva for the holiday because her boyfriend is stalking her ex-boyfriend. She tells Riva that he's beat her up before. And so Riva's like, well, we have so much security at my house now. Like, I've been kidnapped. People have tried to murder me. Like, just come hang out.
Beyond our Doberman, we now have a full-fledged security force.
Now we have 3 Dobermen and 2 security guards and an alarm system. And my little brother is obsessed with karate. So Grace comes home with her, but is like super, super paranoid. Like, she essentially believes like her ex-boyfriend Rory is like Michael Myers, and like nothing will stop him. He's gonna come get her. So that's kind of annoying. It does have like multiple twists to the story, and I am gonna spoil one thing because it annoys me, and it's that Riva does not die, which is so disappointing because in most of the Fear Street books, like, the bitch dies. That was like the one thing that R.L. Stine had going for him with Fear Street is like you could count on some sort of cathartic release. She does survive. But I think of the 3, one is probably the strongest, but they're so batshit crazy and so like 90s nostalgic that if you can find like the collector's edition with all 3, just crank them out. They're super short. They're like less than 200 pages each. And it's like, if you can't be nostalgic about weird books at Christmas, when can you?
I mean, I feel like you should be. So, on that note, different direction, but again, because I was like, I haven't really read anything, I was like, well, what can I find and listen to? So, this came up on multiple lists. It's by Christopher Moore, and it's called The Stupidest Angel, A Heartwarming Tale of Christmas Terror.
I've read this one.
So somebody described it, and I don't have better words for it, so I'm going to use it as if Sam Raimi directed a Hallmark movie with murder, that this would be this book. So
That's fair.
It's horror light. The premise of the book, this was made in 2004, and it is part of a series, but I'm reading it as a standalone, and I'm more or less following it, so I would say you guys can do that too. It is about, it's called 'Twas the Night, okay, more like the week before Christmas, and all through the tiny community of Pinecrone, California, people are busy buying, wrapping, packing, and generally getting into the holiday spirit. But not everybody is feeling the joy. Little Joshua Barker is in desperate need of a holiday miracle. No, he's not on his deathbed. No, his dog hasn't run away from home. But Josh is sure that he saw Santa take a shovel to the head, and now the 7-year-old only has one prayer. Please, Santa, come back from the dead. But hold on. There's an angel waiting in the wings. Wings, get it? It's none other than the Archangel Razriel, come to Earth seeking a small child with a wish that needs granting. Unfortunately, our angel's not sporting the brightest halo in the bunch, and before you can say Kris Kringle, he's botched his sacred mission and sends the residents of Pine Grove headlong into Christmas chaos, culminating in the most hilarious and horrifying holiday party the town has ever seen. Christopher Moore is one of those authors that I feel like I've read stuff by him before, and I'm like having like a weird fever dream of like, have I read this? Have I not read this?
I've read Lamb, which I think is so funny. It's essentially like the story of Jesus, but told by his best friend from childhood, Biff.
Mm-hmm.
So
I started this. I would say I'm probably a fourth or a fifth of the way through it. And again, describing it as if Sam Raimi like directed a Hallmark Christmas horror movie, I'm like, yes, because it even opens with a very like very small town. Here's somebody ringing the Salvation Army bell, getting donations, and she goes over to her like ex-husband. This woman ringing this in this Santa costume goes over to her ex-husband and starts ringing this bell frantically in his face, and he throws a 10-pound bag of ice and like smacks her with it. Yeah. And like, so it's like, okay, we're just gonna start with some light domestic abuse. No big deal.
I love the description of that scene though, where there's like a gym that overlooks that parking lot. So like everybody's like on the treadmills, like watching. And they're like, ooh, and then they're like, oh shit.
Yes. And the sheriff of it is very kind of like, I wish I still smoked pot. Like the constable, like nobody respects his authority. And it's, again, this book has such good descriptions of it. And to me, the death of Santa happens so quickly that you're like, wait, what just happened? The horrifying part isn't the death of Santa. It's kind of the terrible residents of the town, and they're all kind of like, they all just do some wild things, and you're just like, wow. So if you're looking for something a little more offbeat, a little more lighthearted, but still has horror elements of, you know, zombie Santa, and and you don't mind kind of the angelic perspective because it's humor, it's very Christmassy. It very much is describing, you can picture this small town and during Christmas. So if that's up your alley, I would say check out The Stupidest Angel, which, like, with a title like that, you feel like you have to give it a shot. Yes, I was like, all right, we'll take a crack at it. So yes, that would be my first contribution. This is the one I'm only actively listening to because I don't have time to do that for other ones. All right. So the second one that I'm going to talk about is Snow by Ronald Malfi from 2010. The synopsis is: Todd Curry wants nothing more than to spend Christmas with his son. But when a brutal snowstorm cancels his flight from Chicago to Des Moines, Todd and a few other stranded passengers decide to rent a Jeep and make the trip on their own. During the drive, they pick up a man wandering through the snow who claims to be searching for his lost daughter. He's disoriented, and his story seems peculiar. Strangest of all are the mysterious slashes cut into the back of the man's coat, straight down to the flesh. When they arrive at the nearest town, it appears deserted, windows dark, cars abandoned, fires burning unattended. But Todd and the rest of the travelers soon learn the town is far from deserted and that they are being watched. Well, this is spooky. Yeah, so this is available in audiobook because that's how I was listening to it to start when I was reading it. So obviously, like, it is sort of a tropey thing of like a guy trying to get home for Christmas. I was going to say, sounds like the premise of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Yeah. Instead of Thanksgiving, it's Christmas. He is like estranged from his wife and his son. You learn later in the book that he's had some like sort of like gambling issues that have prevented him from seeing his son in the past. So it's very important to Todd to get home to his kid. And he meets these people in the airport. They decide to rent a car. This is like very creepy to me because I've been in this situation before. Like in college, I was trying to get home for Christmas and there was a huge storm. So I flew from like
Philly to Baltimore to Chicago and then couldn't get to Ohio because the storm was over Ohio. And I was like, well, maybe I can go to Detroit and then like get a car and drive down. And then like to go to Detroit, I had to fly like further west to then come out. So I like flew all the way to California.
Oh my
And then by that point, like it was so bad. They're like, there's no way like we can just get you to like Baltimore again. So I went back to Chicago and then back to Baltimore. And then with some strangers that I met who were on the same plane and were like, hey, like we heard you talking on the phone, not to be super sus, but like we're going to rent a car and just drive to Philly. And I was like, let me take your picture and send it to my roommates in case I die. And they're like totally reasonable. And so I texted it to my best friend who was my roommate at the time. And I was like, I'm getting in a car with these guys. They say they live in Philly. If I go missing, this is who did it. And then we drove back to Philadelphia in the rental car and I like threw them some like cash. And then the next day I got on a different flight and flew to Ohio fine. So that was the day.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm very distracted by, I think it's my Tater Tot.
I think it's murder happening upstairs. Yeah. What's funny is like every time we think that you can hear something on here, they can't hear it.
It's just us.
It's just us. We're having our like weird like Jack Nicholson moment right now. That's definitely your Tater Tot.
Yes.
So yeah, back to the book. It's a very like then we just hear your husband go, stop.
Oh god.
I want to believe that like your refrigerator is no longer in one piece, that he just like ripped the doors off.
I have no idea what is being thrown. or like hammering.
He's Velma Westing.
Yes. Oh no.
He got caught.
He got caught.
Taking him back.
Yep.
He got caught in Dallas.
No. We're both like crying at this point.
Oh god. Okay. So it has like
let's talk about snow.
Snow has like kind of Walking Dead vibes to it, where it's like these people have like happened to become the traveling group. They're not all gonna make it. I'm not gonna tell you who dies, but like it's a group that grows and then shrinks. It is like a small town where everybody knows each other that they first end up in. And really the description of the, I'm going to say creatures for lack of a better word, that are sort of running amok in this town it's so good, and it is so normal that it makes it terrifying. Like it is a thing that we have all seen at some point in our lives during the winter. So once we have a good snow here, it's definitely going to hit me different now.
Deer.
Going outside.
It's killer deer. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
That's
the Midwestern in me.
It has some pretty good kill scenes, some very scary, tense moments. It has a little bit of that like survivor horror, because you know, like The Walking Dead, like it's about zombies, but it's really more about like the survivors and them trying to live.
Very much so.
And like really the other people become the most terrifying part of it.
Right. It's never. I mean, yeah, the zombies are scary on The Walking Dead because they, especially like in later seasons, they just become giant conglomerate like of them. But same
kind of general vibe. I will say it kind of fell off for me in like the second half of the book, but that's not to say that it's like bad. I think the first 2/3 of it are really strong. I think it's good wintertime horror, and then it does happen like over the Christmas holiday because that's why Todd is trying to get home. So
sounds spooky. Might put it on my list. I did want to do a quick aside. This is brand new. It just came out in October, like late October. But there is a short story compendium or anthology called Christmas and Other Horrors, edited edited by Ellen Datlow, and it has work by Stephen Graham Jones, Alma Katsu, Cassandra Kha, Kha, I think so, Josh Mallerman, and Garth Nix, among others. And
these are some really big name horror authors.
Yes.
Josh Mallerman, most of you would know from Bird Box.
Yes. Stephen Graham Jones, of course, you guys know. Alma Katsu has written several spooky books. The first book that they wrote, The Hunger, I believe, is like a version of
Dahmer Party. I read that one.
So anyways, this just came out. The reviews on it are it's called a Sterling Collection. Reviews are pretty good on it. If you're looking for short story horror, this is one that I would say, yeah, you should definitely check this out. Except for this 1-star Amazon review who said, terrible, am returning. Not comparable to Stephen King or Edgar Allan Poe. I'm like, well, no, my dude.
Well, it didn't say it was written by them, Karen. Jesus.
But other people have said that these are really good. They've enjoyed. There's one that's by the Cassandra Kha. It's about a folkloric horror, and she was a girl, and she has really like well written ones. And then Josh Mallerman's is The Lowly Sauna, which is about a character visiting his Finnish girlfriend's parents and has been invited to the sauna with her dad. The sauna experience turns suffocating and mystical. I'm like, great, that sounds terrifying. I'm pretty sure, is it I Know What You Did Last? Someone dies in a sauna in a slasher movie, and I cannot remember. Maybe I'm thinking of Death Spa. I probably am thinking of Death Spa.
I think we talked about this before, and I just talked about this with not male coworker number 2, but as yet to be nicknamed former male coworker. Someone does die in like a tanning bed in something.
I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Well, I thought it was that, but I don't know that she actually dies in that. I think it's in something else. Because he said it, and I was like, aha, yes, that's what it is, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, they can listen to it and respond to us and go, God, Beth and Britta. They also said Christopher Golden is also in this, and the importance of a tidy home is his contribution, and it's based on Germanic folklore about spirits who visit homes during the new year and reward tidy homes. In this version, our main character is homeless and is able to see these spirits enter and inspect homes. However, if the home isn't up to par, the spirits resort to gruesome punishments. So a lot of good like premise and different than just like Santa's a serial killer type of slasher horror.
It was Final Destination 3.
Okay.
2 of them die in the tanning beds in that.
Okay. So yeah, there's 18 original horror stories in here. Again, I feel like these really kind of stretch the ideas of what Christmas horror is usually thought to be. So if you're looking for a new book, you can check it out at your local library. You can order it off of an indie book site. I guess if you really want it, you can order it off Amazon. But by God, you better not return it there, because these poor authors are making no money. So
learn from the first book we talked about. Don't give Scrooge more money.
Yes.
He hasn't had his ghost moment yet.
I think that's true. If he has, he's just like, I don't care. I'm still going to build on the moon.
He was like, I just had indigestion. Now I'm only going to eat Soylent Green. Bye! And then launches himself into space.
So yes, that's my on my to read list, because I am very intrigued by that. I probably won't get to it until January.
I don't love short stories anymore. I used to love them, like especially when I was in college, because I took the subway a lot, and it was like nice to just kind of crank out a whole short story on my commute. Now I have a hard time getting into them, but I'm intrigued.
I am intrigued as well. We'll have to reconvene I'll give us like
next
3 months.
Christmas.
Yep.
We'll discuss if we've read it.
Yep.
And we'll both go, nope, didn't have time. Okay, so my next one is Nosferatu, or Nosferatu, depending on how you want to pronounce it, by Joe Hill, who, because I call his father Uncle Steve, I feel like I should call him Cousin Joe.
That's fair.
He's Stephen King's son,
Mhm.
Joseph Hillstrom King. He wrote under a pseudonym because he didn't want to ride his dad's coattails, which I respect.
I also, if you guys like the dynamic of them being father-son, Midnight Pals, who is on, they were on Twitter. I think they have expanded to other social media since Twitter's kind of imploding.
It is a public toilet.
And they are also, they just started a podcast, and the whole premise is like that they have these different horror authors coming together, kind of like the Midnight Society, or like Are You Afraid of the Dark, telling spooky stories. And Steve is so well written as like it's like microfiction, and he's well written, but he's always like, and my son, I'm so proud of my son, Joe. Joe is so great. And Joe's like, Dad, like, and just kind of like, you're too old type of thing. Like, Steve, you're doing too much.
Have they ever done one where like Owen's there?
Yeah,
and he just
Owen's
ignores
like,
him?
hey, Dad. And then he's like, but my son, Joe.
That's so sad.
It's so sad.
It like very much reminds me of that. What is it, like Brother Bear, where it's like sometimes I can still hear his voice. He's like, I'm right here.
Yes.
Poor Owen.
Poor Owen.
But yeah, so Joe Hill. I love Joe Hill. I don't know if you read any of him.
I have. I read the one with the horns.
Okay.
Horns.
Yeah.
Right? Horns.
So you obviously people are want to compare him to his dad, and there are like some similarities, but he's very much like his own author. He's got his own voice.
Yeah, and very different premises for stories.
Well, this one has like some overlap, I feel like, but this came out in 2013, and the little blurb is, Nosferatu is a spine-tingling novel of supernatural suspense from master of horror Joe Hill, the New York Times bestselling author of Heart-Shaped Box and Horns, as Beth just mentioned.
The horns.
So, Victoria McQueen has a secret gift for finding things: a misplaced bracelet, a missing photograph, answers to unanswerable questions. On her Raleigh Tough Burner bike, she makes her way to rickety covered bridge that, within moments, takes her wherever she needs to go, whether it's across Massachusetts or across the country. So we get like a childhood version of Vic, and then we get an adult version of her, but essentially she is like time traveling, multiversing through time and space over this covered bridge. Then you also have Charles Talent Manx, who has a way with children. He likes to take them for rides in his 1938 Rolls-Royce Wraith with the Nosferatu vanity plate. With his old car, he can slip right out of the everyday world and onto the hidden roads that transport them to an astonishing and terrifying playground of amusements he calls Christmas Land. Then one day, Vic goes looking for trouble and finds Manx. That was a lifetime ago. Now Vic, the only kid to ever escape Manx's unmitigated evil, is all grown up and desperate to forget. But Charlie Manx never stopped thinking about Victoria McQueen. He's on the road again, and he's picked up a new passenger, Vic's own son. So you have this serial killer, Manx, who is like one of the most unhinged serial killer villains I have ever read in a book. And he is terrifying, but he is equally hilarious. And that somehow makes it even creepier. He has this sort of like lackey named Bing, who is a perfect lackey form, but I will trigger warning you, he's very rapey in a not a good way.
Great.
And there's like a whole thing with like gingerbread scented anesthesia that is used to drug people. And Manx's like homestead is called Sleigh House, Sleigh. He says that he takes these children to the Christmas Land amusement park. There's like a very creepy plot point that deals with Christmas ornaments that becomes like very important in the latter half. it's like kind of vampire adjacent story.
Okay.
And they did make an adaptation for TV.
I watched, I think, the first like 2 episodes. But I did like the idea of Zachary Quinto as the bad guy.
Yeah. My only qualm with this is that Vic's son's name is Bruce Wayne Carmody, and he goes by Wayne. It's like, all right, good for you, I guess. I love Lou. That's Wayne's dad. He's like a biker. I love him in the adaptation for TV as well. This one is kind of a chunker. It's like 700 some pages, but I was like hooked through the whole thing. So
I think Kate Mulgrew does the audiobook version of it, which for those of you who aren't Trekkies, Kate Mulgrew is most famous for starring in Star Trek The Next Generation. No, I messed that up. She's also, if you are newer to Kate Mulgrew, she's also in Orange Is the New Black as Red, who the like head chef Russian inmate on that show.
I think it's Voyager. Star Trek Voyager.
Yes. So she does. That's all I kept thinking while you were talking about it. I was like, wait, why am I? And I was like, that's not correct. So I was trying to look it up while you were.
Kate Mulgrew does do the audiobook.
So if you're looking for, I would say, a good time with an audiobook, listen to her. I don't know. Did you listen to it?
I did. I enjoy her as a narrator. Janeway is not my favorite captain, but that's for a different time and place. I would upset some people with my Star Trek opinions. I am a Trekkie now. I wasn't in my childhood. I thought it was like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys where you could only like Star Trek or Star Wars, and I was a Star Wars girl. And then one year I decided I was going to watch all of Star Trek in universe chronological order, which has swayed me to like people that other Trekkies hate. So that's that.
That's that. So yeah, something to think about. Nosferatu is on my reading list, like eventually.
I think you'll like it. I think you might have a little bit of a hard time with I feel like this is a trigger warning also worth mentioning. Like Manx's its children are his victims. So
I think I might have a hard time with that too. Joe Hill also writes, his horror it's different than his dad's, but it's the same, where it's very visceral, but like at the same time it's icky in a way where his dad's is not, where he like really gets to kind of like the mundane things that you wouldn't think about being gross, where you're like, oh God, that's making my stomach turn.
Yeah, I think it's also like very telling. Like they come from like a similar place in their horror. Like they do have like some overlapping themes and things like that, but it's like very obviously different generations, and I think that makes a difference as well.
Yes, I would agree to that. The next one I'm going to talk about is from a newer horror author. This is from Brom, and it's about Krampus, the Yule Lord. So for those of you who don't know who Brom is, as I said, a newer horror author. They said over the past few decades, but I would say they really haven't come to prominence except for the last maybe couple of years. Their more popular book is called Slewfoot. It's a tale of bewitchery. It just came out, I think, either last year or maybe the year prior. But they have a book called Krampus. It is Krampus. It is also illustrated, but anyways, it's set in Appalachia. Krampus the Yule Lord is a twisted fairy tale about a failed West Virginia songwriter who gets ensnared on Christmas Eve in an internal war between the not-so-saintly Saint Nick and his dark enemy Krampus, a.k.a. Black Peter, an ancient trickster demon. Krampus the Yule Lord is Gregory Maguire meets Susanna Clark in the realm of Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, as well as Clive Barker works on his dark sorcery from the shadows. Once again, featuring Brahms' chilling, beautiful artwork throughout, Krampus the Yule Lord is a feast of wonder straight from the kitchen of Sweeney Todd. Well, when you got all those name drops, I'm like, this either means it's really, really good and it's exactly what, like, yes, apt comparisons, or you're doing too much and we're trying to make up for it. Again, have not had time to read that, but I was like, I really do enjoy. So, you know, you guys have just listened to our spooky horror movie set in Christmas, and of course we talked about Krampus. That's one of my favorite Christmas horror movies. It's one that I rewatch every year. I get something slightly new out of it each year. But I like the idea, like, that our kind of public consciousness is finally catching up to, like, Europe's, because he's been around forever in Europe. But the American consciousness is like we know who that is now. And I like the idea of, you know, in this book, he's a multi-dimensional character, as is Santa Claus. And I like the idea of, you know, like, Saint Nick isn't so saintly, and maybe Krampus is has got some layers, as Shrek likes to say, like onion layers to him. Yeah, I just think about those things because, like, I like the idea of him not being, like, a completely mean man. Maybe there is more altruism to him. He's got a system and he has to play by his system. Just same with, like, Santa.
Yeah, I've read this book. I enjoyed it. It is like if you get this, like, illustrated version of it, it is like coffee table book size, so it is an awkward sized book to read, but I enjoyed it. And growing up, like I mentioned earlier, like, I'm very Polish, but we grew up with, like, a very Eastern European, Slovakian type upbringing. And so, like, we celebrated, like, St. Nicholas Day and, like, putting your shoes under your bed, and then he leaves you, like, something in your shoes, and that comes before Christmas. And, like, we did the advent calendars, and, like, Krampus is, like, very much an alternative to St. Nicholas, where it's like, if you're good, St. Nicholas brings you chocolate and leaves it in your shoes, and if you're bad, Krampus, like, puts you in a bag and takes you to Spain and, like, beats you. So
God.
Yeah, so I mean, I enjoyed it. I think it's worth a read. Just, like, if you are finicky about your physical media, just know that you're not going to comfortably be able to hold this book while you're reading it.
I also wanted to put, like, a quick shout out. So another YA book, but it's not a horror book by any means. It's called My True Love Gave to Me, and it's got 12 short stories. I actually had one year my library book club read this, and it was not well taken because they don't like young adult books.
All of Beth's book club is, like, 100 years old.
They skew older, yes. But Holly Black is one of my favorite young adult authors, and she writes generally kind of darker young adult, like, fantasy and fairy tales. So everything has dark fairies in it, and we're not talking, like, Tinkerbell, like, cutesy fairies. We're talking, like,
Maleficent.
You know, like, dark feasts. Like, you might get trapped in the fairy underground and be a human slave forever. It's no big deal. It's fine. And she wrote a book. She wrote a short story in this collection called Krampuslauf, and it is the very plot of it feels, out of all the stories, it feels the least Christmassy, but it is very much a Holly Black story, and it's like her take on Christmas and Krampus. And so basically the narrator and her friends Penny and Ren go to the local Krampuslauf or Krampus festival so Penny can see the guy she's dating, Roth. Roth is one of the cool wealthy kids who has a real girlfriend who isn't Penny, and everyone but Penny seems to know it. When Roth arrives at the festival with his real girlfriend in tow, Ren decides she's going to protect Penny by inviting Roth and his girlfriend to a Christmas party that our narrator will throw. All the while, our narrator is preoccupied with a very handsome boy in a very realistic Krampus costume. Fast forward to the night of the party, which our narrator works incredibly hard on, and is emotionally invested in. And Roth and his girlfriend show up and they're drunk and a fight breaks out and everything is really awful. So it's already kind of like not horror as in like, vampire horror, but like traumatic young adult, like, oh, I thought I was dating you and now this is ending in heartbreak horror. Anyways, Krampus, who is the other love interest, shows up and creates vengeance on the boy. And so I'm just saying, this is a very good like short story if you're looking for like not so cutesy, but like with romantic undertones, because I'm all about that too. I'm like, wait.
I mean, Krampus does have a very long tongue, so.
So,
I get it.
all I'm saying is, Holly Black, if you ever hear this one day into the future and you're looking to write anything else that's holiday, please just write me a Krampus story. I would read that.
Do you think like if I went right now on like Archive of Our Own that I could find like Krampus smut?
Oh, I'm 100% sure that you could.
For sure gonna go home and look this up. I don't want Struwelpeter to be there though. That just makes me think of Dwight Schrute.
I am 100% certain you can find it, though. I'm hoping it's like original. Like,
I just need you to know this is 100% stemming from the fact that I've accidentally stumbled upon, thank you Tumblr, recently, Venom smut. Like Venom from Spider-Man. And I'm like really into it. So.
Wait, do they base it off of like the comic or of like the Tom Hardy movies?
Both. There's a wealth of both.
I'm sure there's a
sometimes
wealth of both.
Eddie's there, sometimes he's not. Anyway, I have one more.
Okay.
And that is, weirdly enough, because I just mentioned Dwight Schrute, it is Secret Santa, which came out in 2020 by Andrew Schaefer. I had read Andrew Schaefer books before I read this the first time because he has a series of mysteries, like mystery thrillers that star Barack Obama and Joe Biden. They're exactly what you think they are. They're so dumb and silly and fun, and it's like best bros 5 ever solving international crimes. So he wrote Secret Santa, which a lot of people have described as like The Office meets Stephen King.
Yes, I was looking this up. This was on multiple
I
rounds.
love it. I think you would actually like it. It's a very like 80s horror book.
Love it.
It is set during the horror publishing boom of the 1980s, and he's like writing what he knows and that it takes place in like a publishing house. So the main character is Lucy Meyer. She's basically like, she got laid off when her employer, her publishing house, got like absorbed by Harper, and they like laid off a bunch of people and they kept all their own employees. And so she's been like hoofing it in New York City in the 80s. She's in her mid-20s. She's trying to find a new job, and like she just on a whim applies for an open position at Blackwood Patterson, which is a publishing house, but they're like an old school publishing house. Like they publish like the Hemingways and the Faulkners and like literary, and she describes it as like men who masturbate and cry, like stories. And so
the crying wank,
yeah,
is always
and she's
the
coming
saddest.
off of the like I like shit out best-selling horror authors. This is like not my wheelhouse at all. You weren't even on my radar, but I really need a job. So she goes in for an interview. A bizarre set of circumstances leads to her getting hired there under the condition that she must find the next horror superstar to compete with Stephen King, Anne Rice, and Peter Straub by Christmas. So she gets hired at like the beginning of December.
Oh, that's so easy.
Yeah. So it's not that she has to publish their book by then, but she has to get them under contract. And it is like the 80s where like horror is hot.
Right.
So she gets there, but it is like a very quirky, old school publishing house. Like everyone there is very strange and neurotic. It has like the vibes like, yes, it is kind of an office comedy, but it has the vibes of, like, it reminds me of, like, the Witches, Roald Dahl, like, movie, or, like, Death Becomes Her.
Okay.
Like, it's very comedy-centric, but, like, horror light. And as soon as she starts working there, she is kind of, like, the target of, like, hazing, and they have a secret Santa gift exchange. And so she got hired after everybody picked their secret Santas.
Right.
But there is a gift under the tree for her. And what it is they, like, all open their gifts at the Christmas party, and everyone has to guess who gave them their gift. And so it comes to her. She's the last one. She opens it, and inside is this little figurine that is very Krampus looking. It's a Percht, and she recognizes it because her grandma had one when she was a kid. And it's this sort of, like, horned, big-toothed, fur-covered little, like, demon-type figurine. And she knows that it belonged to the head of the publishing house because she saw it in his office. But she has no idea who gave it to her. And after she gets it, her coworkers, one by one, start falling victim to a series of horrific accidents akin to, as they put it, a George Romero movie. Lucy suspects that her gift is involved. And with the help of her former author, who's named Fabian Nightingale, and he's like this British horror author. And there's like a scene where they drink a bunch of absinthe and like go nuts in New York City, which cracks me up. They're like riding plastic reindeer down the street, racing them. She and Fabian have to track down her anonymous secret Santa and figure out the true meaning of the cursed object in her possession before it destroys the company and her soul.
Wow. Yeah, that does sound like something.
It's very campy, Beth, and there's like a ton of 80s pop culture references.
Can I just say, I don't think we've ever discussed this, but I truly do like work-related horror movies. Like, it's a niche that I didn't think that I would like. When the movie Office Christmas Party came out, I was like, I need to go see this. And I'm like, why? Like, Beth, why do you need to? And I'm like, I don't know. I just need to go see it. And if it's on like TV or if it's on, I'll just watch it. And I'm like, Beth, why? And I'm like, I think I like to glamorize the idea of like having a ginormous, fun Office Christmas party. And I'm like, why?
Can you imagine like if we did that? Like, it would just be me. I would just be drunk.
Yeah.
It would just be me. Everyone else would be like, all right, well, I'm going to leave. Like,
the akin to that is like, well, one, like we would never have it where we work, but two, like we've had something kind of like that, and
I didn't go.
All of us dipped because we're like, we don't want to be around people we know that are higher up than us drinking. That doesn't sound like a good time. Yeah, I used to work at a local retail chain, and we had two different types of holiday gatherings. So we had like the store holiday gathering where they would like go to like Giant Eagle and buy us, which was funny because we were like we had groceries, but we didn't have like they would buy us like food trays.
You didn't have a sandwich platter there.
We did not.
You maybe had some craft singles.
Yes. So they would buy us like, and they would store expense like other stuff. And we would have like little Christmas and holiday parties like during Christmas. But then the department I worked in, we would go, and because we worked with like the pharmacy as well, and the pharmacist would take us like our small departments out to like eat at a restaurant and stuff like that. So we did that several years in a row. And I remember the one year we went to like Red Lobster, and I was 16 working with like a bunch of adults, and like everyone else is drinking, and I'm just like sitting there eating my salad with my assistant manager because like I got there later than everybody else, so I didn't have a place to sit in like the big party table at Red Lobster. So it felt like I was on a date with my assistant manager. And then he's like making fun of me for how I'm eating my salad because I didn't eat salad dressing back then, because I was like, nah, it's fine. I can eat the vegetables raw And now I'm like, Beth, that is a little weird. That's why they make salad dressing.
I don't really like salad dressing.
So I'm just eating it with like a little bit of salt and pepper. And he's like, that is the strangest thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, thank you.
The only like office Christmas parties I've ever been to were when I gave ghost tours in Philadelphia. The owner of our ghost tour company would have a like Christmas dinner in like South Philly at an Italian restaurant in like Queens Village. So like very like Rocky Balboa neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew that it was good food because there had been mob hits there. And so we would go there and they would just buy us like this really good Italian dinner with like the good like house wine.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just drink too much of it. And because it was Philly, like I didn't have a car, so I would either like have to take the subway home, or I would just like pathetically like look at one of the other tour guides and be like, help me, I'm poor, take me home. And then when I was in like an improv group for a really long time, like a decade. And we would have a Christmas party and we would do a white elephant gift exchange. And it was less about like getting anything good and more about just like pissing off one of the other people in the group. So I have a like homemade soft pretzel maker and mini pie maker machine that are like a waffle iron that I have literally never even opened, that I stole from someone on the last round of White Elephant. Because like White Elephant, you all get a gift, you open it, and then there's like a chance to steal on the round, and then you end up with whatever you end up with. And I knew that my friend who was also in the group really wanted both of those, and I stole them from him just so he couldn't have them, and then I never used them. So you might actually listen to this. If you do, I'm still not sorry.
I did forget. I don't know why I forgot. I did host my own Christmas parties with all of my friends that worked at the said grocery small grocery chain, and I definitely made like sugar cookies for it, and there was drinking and all sorts of like I remember the one time I was having a very small minty bee because it was finals week at college, and I literally procrastinated writing like a 20-page essay, stayed up all night writing said essay, also had to pack because I was moving dorms, so I was supposed to be doing both of those things, and I was not doing those things well. And then my mom came to pick me up because I had to move all my stuff so I could and there was like a holiday time, and then Oberlin takes like January off because we have winter term where you can do like a project. So I had to store all my stuff for like a month. But my mom's like, all right, who wants to go to like this local Italian restaurant? And I'm like, I've been up for 26 hours. I just want a nap. And I'm like having a very small minty bee. And I was like, I have to. And my sibling was like, Beth, just if you eat some food, like some actual food, and not just drink coffee like you've been doing, and you go home and you take a nap, just put on your ugly Christmas sweater and it's gonna be okay. Like everything else is prepared. And that one in particular stands out to me because I don't remember the actual party because I think I was overtired and drunk. Good times. So anyways, I enjoy holiday office movies, and I think I enjoy office horror movies because I'm a Capricorn baby. Like I'm all about that work life, and I'm like, yes, that's where I'm going to end up being when the zombie apocalypse happens, is at work, unfortunately. And on that really giant aside that we just both did, I also think we played the video game Left 4 Dead at some of our Christmas parties. And definitely we had like a whole year where we just continuously played that game, which if you've never played that, it's a horror game. It's a first-person shooter. It's a lot of fun. I'm sad they never made any other Left 4 Dead games. But anyways, the last book I'm going to end on is this. It's a short chapbook. So if you want to read this book, the only way to get it is by purchasing it from this author, which is good because then they get the money. And, you know, we're all about promoting small business around here and promoting authors for their work. And it's called Unmemory by Christy DeMeester. And it's an illustrated chapbook. And the premise of this is that it's really short. It's 9,000 word short story with 10 illustrations. The premise of it is a university student attempts to track down a briefly glimpsed Christmas film which traumatized her as a child. So immediately upon reading this premise, I have not bought this yet because, again, apparently I don't read Christmas horror besides A Christmas Carol. Upon reading this, I'm like, oh God, I am sure there's at least 5 movies and premises of things where I'm like, I remember watching that, but I cannot remember what the title was. And especially working at a library like both Britta and I do, I can't tell you that is like one of my biggest pet peeves is trying to remember something I've read or watched and being like, I don't, like, there's like a meme that goes around on the internet of like book displays of, I don't know what the title was, but the cover was blue. I'm like, listen, that's a real life thing, and I'm mad that you guys are making fun of it a little bit.
It's true, but I also feel like I am one of those women that is like, I am the CIA. Like, you can be like, I'm trying to find this guy on social media that I used to work with. And I'm like, what's his name? And you're like, I don't know. I think maybe it started with an M. And I'm like, cool, give me 10 minutes. And then I get online and then I'm like, oh, here, it's Dave Brubaker. He graduated from this high school in 2010, and you guys probably worked together at this place. He just got divorced from his wife. He has 3 kids, and he likes to drive a Camaro. Like, that's me. Like, I can do that. That's my Liam Neeson special skill. So just remember that. If you've ever wronged me, I know everything about you.
So the illustrations aren't super spooky. I mean, they're like a little spooky. They're spooky light, but it's something I'm interested in. And if you're looking for, again, supporting artists, and you're looking to, as a millennial, maybe you're a millennial, I don't know, maybe you're younger, maybe you're older, I don't know. But if you're somebody that's in kind of that general age bracket and you're like, I have nostalgia of watching this really obscure thing that you can't find anymore because the internet broke everything, this would be the horror book for you. So it came recommended amongst a few lists I was looking at generating on, and I was like, that might work. And then I can tick it off my short stories of like, yeah, that goes towards Goodreads too. But I guess I'll get back to you in
3 years.
Business time.
In 3 years, Beth will let you know if she enjoyed this book.
Yes,
the short story.
It's called Unmemory, again by Christy DeMeester. And it could be yours for $15 through their chapbook site. And then, you know, there's other books. There's a lot of, actually, if you're looking for short stories, there's a lot of different horror compendiums of short story Christmas horror. So instead of us running down through every single compendium, because as I said, there's a lot, you just Google it. Also, Victorians were really into ghost stories and Christmas ghost stories. So there's literally like a collection of 4 or 5 volumes of just Victorian Christmas ghost stories.
Yeah. And if you are like not 100% off of the Boy Wizard series from the UK, He Lived, you know who I'm talking about, wink wink nudge nudge. Mm-hmm. Like the first 2 of those have like a lot of Christmas content in them, and the movies as well. So I mean, like, if you just want a nostalgia read and you aren't just like totally grossed out by that, you could always revisit those.
We're both, unfortunately, we're both past that. I think I don't
know. I have a weird nostalgia for it, but like I don't want to give that author any more of my money ever in my life. Mm-hmm. So I just don't buy anything related to it anymore. The end.
That's fair. It sucks because there's a lot of cool stuff that has come out that I'm like, man, 12-year-old Beth would be in 7th heaven right now. But
7th heaven, also a touchy subject.
Yep.
Don't know if you watched that show in your childhood, but we don't stand dad from that anymore.
No. So, yeah, if you guys are, again, looking for some spooky reads, this was a nice, as I said, a little book talk for you to enjoy with your, hopefully, with your Jólabókaflóðið, like your fountain of books that hopefully you got for Christmas.
The Christmas book flood.
Yes. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully you got some good stuff to read. If, you're just here to support us and trashy romance is more your vibe. I get it. As I said, I have no shame. That's apparently what I read during Christmas time.
Yeah, so we are going to take next week off. So don't look for a new episode from us. I'm sorry if that really hurts your feelings, but hey, everybody needs some time away.
That's right.
Her to say. Anyway, don't sue us. So, we hope that you have a good holiday season. If you are not having a great holiday season, just know that you are not alone, and you will get through it. It's just a couple weeks, and then you're in a whole new year. So just
That's right.
Hang on tight, hide out, watch a British baking show, or, binge some old horror or whatever is your comfort watch or read. And we will see you in 2024.
Oh my gosh, 2024. Who would have thought? It still feels like 2022.
Not me. I wouldn't have thought.
Nope. So, yeah, once again, you can catch us not next week, but the week after next. And in the meantime, you can look through our social media, or if you're kind of new, you can listen to some of our other episodes, because now we got kind of a little backlog of episodes. And yeah, just interact with us. If you want to shoot us some questions, you could email us if you're really like, I'm cracking out some old things to do.
Yeah, that's Lake Erie with 2 E's, library @gmail.com.
So yeah, shoot us an email. Actually, if we do get an email, I will crack up.
Okay, if we get an email, I'm sorry, we might not see it until February because we're not good at checking that email. Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, catch us there. We are available wherever podcasts are available. And again, if you are on social media, you could also message us through Facebook or on Instagram, which we do check those, I think, fairly frequently. Like, I would say daily.
Yeah.
We would catch that and see that.
So thanks for this little weird quarter of a year journey we've been on. We're glad you're here. If you're new, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Stay spooky, friends, and happy holidays.